Welcome to Gnarmonton, your mountain biking guide to Edmonton. In this video, I'll be talking about the mountain bike trails in the Mill Creek Ravine and Nellie McClung Park. I decided to combine them because they're right beside each other, and whenever I go riding there, each place doesn't have enough trails to make it a full ride, so I usually end up combining them and it works out pretty well. But before we get into the trails, let's talk about where you can park. Now, usually whenever I go for a ride, I'll park on 95th Street and then just go down an access road into the ravine, but that's not technically a parking spot, I'm just parking on the street. So if you would like to go to a real parking lot, you can go to the Mill Creek North parking lot that is right beside the pool. You're really not going to be missing out on much, just a few little tiny trails and one jump, which really you can just bike back and do it. Or if you'd like to skip Mill Creek altogether and just do the Nellie McClung Park, you can go to the Old Timers Cabbing parking, and that'll take you to the head of all the mountain bike trails in Nellie McClung Park. And as usual, links to all these parking lots will be in the description, but enough about that, let's talk about the trails. So really the major trails that this video will be featuring are the Trap, the West Coast Trail, and to a lesser degree, Old Timers, Canada Cup Network, and Too Much. But first, where I start biking is at the Mill Creek Jumps. And really the jumps aren't very much, but it's a nice little fun place to warm up on. But after a few jumps, I'll leave and I'll head north on the access road. The way that all the mountain bike trails in the Mill Creek Ravine are really, they all branch off the access road and eventually will return back onto the access road. This makes it great for families because let's say two people love mountain biking and two don't. The two that don't can stay on the access road and the two can branch off and go on the mountain bike trails, and generally you'll be heading in the same direction and eventually meet up again. And in due time you will come to the pool parking lot where the first trail of decent length is, and it's called the IMBA Trail. To get to this trail, all you have to do is cross the parking lot, hop a curb, and it's right there. And the IMBA Trail is really fun. The trail will bring you down right beside the creek and you'll be on the side of a hill going in between trees for most of it. It's very fun, some parts are very flowy, but over the years it's been worn down and beat more, so it's quite bumpy now, but it's still a very fun ride. And it also does have a little skinny that each time I visit is a little more rotted away, but it is still manageable. On the way, you'll probably see quite a few other trails that'll go off and come back on. Very short, even too short to be on trail forks. You can totally take them if you want. It seems like a lot of Mill Creek is like this, where it's not really an official trail, but you can still take it, so keep that in mind. And at the end of the IMBA Trail, you'll hop back on the access road and keep going until you find a bridge and you'll want to cross it. You'll take a left off the bridge and continue up the access road until you get to the trail entrance of Hulk Bogan. This might be a little difficult because, like I said, it seems like there's a million trails leading off of the access road. But to find Hulk Bogan, you'll keep going until you come to this wood barrier. Just around the bend is the entrance of Hulk Bogan. It'll be right at the beginning of this hill. Take a right and you'll be on the trail. Or to make this even easier on yourself, I highly recommend downloading Trail Forks. Very good, it works offline, so you'll be able to know where you are on the trails at all times. And to get on LOV, you need to make sure you take the second left-hand turn. If you take the first, you're going to go down some green trail that'll get you right back on the access road. And you know you'll be taking the right turn when you look to your left and see an ent guarding the entrance. And there's good reason for this trail to be guarded, because LOV leads into the Trap, which is probably the best trail in all of Mill Creek. That's not to say that LOV isn't a really good trail. It's pretty flowy going down the opposite direction, and it's got all these really cool ferns or something that looks like ferns, so don't sleep on FOV, it is a pretty cool trail. But now, we get to the Trap. And I have to say, for somebody who loves nice and easy flow, this is your dream. The Trap has got to be one of the most fun trails in all of Edmonton. What makes it so much fun is the flow that doesn't take too much thinking. You don't have to pick lines, you don't have to think about corners, you can just ride and flow along the trail. And on top of that, there's some fun little punchy climbs as well as a skinny that you just saw there. This trail used to be one of my favorite trails, but as I got better, the trail became a little more boring because, like I said, it is very easy. So beginners, I definitely recommend trying this trail. It's very fun, pretty easy. And really, my only other complaint about this trail is that it's very short. It ends just about as soon as it starts. But don't get me wrong, it's definitely worth your time. And eventually, near the end of the Trap, you'll be presented with the choice to either go left or right. If you go to the right, you're going to be going up the stairs, and there's really no way to get down other than the stairs. There's a really nice view of downtown Edmonton, so you can go up, take a look at downtown, and then turn around and go back to the left. And going to the left will bring you to the end of the Trap and to the next trail that's very short called Fast and Furious. But as the name implies, you are going to be going fast, and it's a pretty furious trail. If you've never tried this trail, I highly recommend you go and walk it first. There's quite a nasty root drop that becomes fun once you know it's there, but if you don't, it's not hard to wipe out on it. And I definitely don't recommend this for beginners at all. Go around the other way, there's an easier way, because it's not hard to hit a tree, as you can see I almost did there, but it's short and sweet and it'll bring you right to the access road. And here's where things get a little more complicated, because this is where you're going to be linking Mill Creek to Nellie McClung Park. What we usually do is ride up Connors Road to the low-level bridge. There's no mountain biking, you're pretty much on the side of the road and you have to cross quite a few streets. So if you hate that kind of stuff, don't go this way. The reason we go is to look at downtown as well as ride on the paved path back to Nellie McClung Park. So if you do want to split up the mountain biking with a little bit of road riding, I do highly recommend this path. It's really nice on the side of the river valley with really nice view of downtown almost the entire way. But it is out of the way quite a ways. You can just take an access road that'll get you from Mill Creek to Nellie McClung Park. If you don't want to waste time, go that way. But if not, take the scenic route. And you might have noticed that there is a trail that leads from the low level to the Nellie McClung Park. So you probably think, oh, it's perfect, nice to have a trail on the side of the river valley. Well, here's my warning for you. It's horrible. This trail is extremely grown in and parts of the trail are just missing. So I highly recommend you don't try this trail. But if for some reason you don't trust me now, take my word for it while I was actually on the trail.
This is not a trail.
But whether you went for a little bit of a road ride or just went to the trails as fast as you could, you should end up in the old timers cabin parking. Once you're actually in the parking lot, you'll keep going down the paved road into the park itself. You should immediately swing a left on the paved path and keep going until you see a mountain bike trail on your left, the first left it'll be, and that will be the West Coast Trail. This is a fantastic trail to get warmed up on because it's very long and very slow paced. You can actually take your time on this. There's not too many flowy moments, but there's some nice fun little technical climbs as well as some nice rooty downhills. This trail isn't too difficult to ride. It's very bumpy and rough, and like I said, it's pretty slow. If you're a beginner, there are definitely some places you're going to have to walk, but generally I think everybody can ride this trail. And the West Coast Trail finishes off on the conclusion to Dirty Mattress. I'm not quite sure you can actually call this a trail. It's more of just a hill right beside some walking stairs, but this hill is quite fun to descend on. I'll usually spend a couple minutes doing a couple laps on the hill. And if you're beyond hitting it as a drop and that's a little stale, I highly recommend you try climbing it. It's actually a lot more difficult than it looks, pretty steep, and it's hard to get your back wheel over it, so I definitely challenge you guys to go out and give it a try. But now let's talk about the final 3 trails that are linked in one way or another, starting with the Canada Cup Network, number 1. This trail is quite similar to the West Coast Trail in the way that it is longer and more of a cross-country trail. There's not too much flow, it's quite rooty and slow, but this trail definitely has some defining features such as this cool little root drop that's fun to go up and down, as well as a tough technical climb that did take me quite a few tries, but I did finally make it. But due to these 2 little features, it does help the trail stand out, and it's definitely worth your time. But now we'll talk about Too Much, which is probably my favorite trail that I've talked about in this entire video. Too Much starts out with a pretty fun rooty climb, but that's not the reason this trail is so special. The reason it's so special is because you are biking for the entire time on a ridge. While biking on a ridge may be a little more common in, let's say, BC, this is extremely rare to find in Edmonton. And being on a ridge is not the only thing that this trail has going for it. Not only does it have a skinny that may freak out some of you guys, but it is extremely flowy. And I'd have to say that this is on my list of must-ride trails in all of Edmonton. And for all you beginners watching this, you might be a little freaked out by being on the ridge, but that's just probably the GoPro footage and I'm going pretty fast. You can take your time and you'll be totally safe. It is pretty wide despite what it looks like, so you'll be fine no matter what skill range you are. And finally, we'll talk about Old Timers. Old Timers is yet again a bit of a shorter trail, but it's still a very fun trail because it has a few different little wood features. This includes a little wooden triangle that you just saw me go over there, as well as this nice long skinny bridge that goes around a few trees. And finally, a little ways down the trail, there's 2 4x4s that are stuck together that make a bit of a skinny. And with that, that's all that Nellie McClung Park has to offer for mountain bike trails. So a final thing that I like to say is that these trails are for everybody. Whether you're just starting out or you've been biking for quite a while, I think you could find joy in these trails because there are some challenging features that will keep the more skilled bikers entertained. But for the most part, all these trails are quite easy and even the most beginner of beginner can ride these trails. You'll just have to walk a few places. And also remember that on all these mountain bike trails, there's almost always a paved path that's really close. So if you want to bring your whole family and some of you guys ride on the paved path and some on the mountain bike, that is totally possible and these trails are great for that. And with that, this video is over. Thank you guys so much for watching this second episode of Gnarmonton. I hope it did improve from the first. I'd love to hear some of your guys' feedback in the comments. And with that, I'd also like to mention if you want to donate to the maintenance of these trails or just building new trails in Edmonton as a whole, you can donate. There's a link right down there in the description. But that's the end of the video. I'd like to mention that I will probably have one more episode of Gnarmonton before winter hits, so make sure to subscribe so you do see that. Or you want to watch some of my other episodes of Gnarmonton, there's a playlist right there on the top right. But that's the end of the video. Thank you guys for liking and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.